There is a dirt road that cuts through the valley, lined with eucalyptus trees and old barbed wire fences. And if you follow it far enough, you'll see the clay-tiled roof of the farmhouse at Santa Helena. The house is old, older than memory for most people who live nearby. Its porch creaks under the weight of time. Its windows moan when the wind shifts south, and at night, if the air is still, you can hear the wood groaning as if the house itself is breathing. I know that place, and I know the story that lingers there. It is not written in books, it is not told in loud voices, and it is certainly not told with laughter. It is whispered by the stove in the evenings, when the fire glows low and the shadows lean close, because the night listens and the night remembers. Life on that farm was never easy, despite the name of the saint. Mrs. Amelia was the owner. She had been a widow for many years, a woman of iron will and silent faith. She raised her only son, Mateus, in that soil. He was the kind of man who spoke little but worked endlessly. He knew how to milk the cows before dawn, to mend a fence with steady hands, to carry the silence of the fields as though it was part of his blood. The farm did not survive by miracle. It survived because of his routine, the repetition of his labor, day after day, season after season. Everything was built on habit, and it was that sense of habit that made the first scream so terrible. It happened on a night when the moon was full and pale, a shriek that cut the silence apart like a blade. It was not long, not drawn out, but sharp, sudden, and final. Then the crashing of wood, the frantic movement of animals scattering in the dark. By morning, one of the pigs lay dead, its body torn open, blood soaking into the dirt floor. The fence had been broken, the straw scattered, and in the earth were strange prints. They were not hooves, not paws. They looked half like a man's foot and half like something else. People whispered that it might have been a jaguar, but those who knew jaguars shook their heads. A jaguar kills differently. This was something else. Mrs. Amelia crossed herself and told the men to guard the place. But Mateos took his father's old shotgun and went out alone the next night. The moon was high, bright enough to make the pasture gleam like a field of silver. The wind carried the scent of damp earth and distant water. Mateus stood by the pigsty and waited. The hours crawled past until he saw a shadow. It moved fast, too fast to be a man. Tall, broad, covered in dark fur, and when it turned its head, he saw not the face of a man, but a long muzzle, sharp teeth catching the moonlight. Mateos fired, but the shot missed. The beast leapt the fence with impossible strength, knocked into the ground, and its claws tore deep into his arm. In desperation, he drew his hunting knife and plunged it into the creature's chest. The howl that followed was not human, not animal, but something caught in between, and the sound of it seemed to shake the very earth. The beast stumbled, bleeding, and vanished into the trees. Mateos bound his wound and said nothing. He told no one, not even his mother, but the killings did not stop. Another pig, then another. Each night under the moon, an animal torn apart, the same strange tracks left in the dirt, and his wound did not heal. It burned with the fire under his skin, it pulsed with every heartbeat, and he felt something changing inside him. His senses sharpened beyond reason. He could smell the coming of rain before the clouds touched the sky. He could hear the trickle of water far down the stream as though it whispered in his ear. And at worst was the hunger, the deep hunger that nothing could satisfy. On the next full moon, the truth came. Mateos woke in the night, trembling. His skin burned as if it could not contain him. His bones cracked and bent, reshaping themselves. His muscles bulged and coarse fur spread across his body. His spine twisted as he fell to the ground, and when he rose, he was no longer Mateos. He was the beast.
That night, the werewolf tore through the pasture and killed a calf. At dawn, Mateos lay on the porch, filthy, bruised, his body marked by blood he could not explain. He remembered the moon, the running, the unbearable urge to kill, and he remembered guilt. Guilt without reason, guilt that tasted of iron in his mouth. The cycle began. Every full moon, another animal slaughtered. Sometimes a pig, sometimes a calf, sometimes chickens scattered and left in pieces. The men of the farm armed themselves with machetes and lanterns, with rusty old guns, and walked the fields together, swearing they would hunt the beast down. But they didn't know the truth. They hunted with Mateos at their side by day, and he hunted them back by night. He pretended to share their fears, pretended to join their watch, but when the moon rose, he vanished, and he returned only when dawn broke, with dirt on his clothes and silence in his eyes. The whispers grew. The workers spoke of a lobisson, a werewolf. They said it quietly because laughter is dangerous in the dark. Even the priest who visited once every 2 weeks to say mass in the chapel avoided the subject. He only told them to pray, to guard their souls, and he left before the sun fell. But the fear spread. Then one day, Zepequeño came back from town with something wrapped in cloth. A silver bullet, expensive, rare, said to be the only way to kill a creature like that. They kept it hidden, but every man knew that when the time came, it would be used. And so they waited. On the night of the trap, the men surrounded the pasture, lanterns burning low, hearts heavy in their chests. The moon rose, and with it came the beast. It was larger than ever, fueled by blood and hunger, and it smashed through the wooden fence as if it were nothing. Its glowing eyes fell on the cattle, and its howl tore through the valley. The men fired, but only one shot mattered. Zepequeño raised the gun, took aim, and the silver bullet struck the creature's shoulder. The howl that followed was like nothing they had ever heard, a sound that froze the blood of every living thing. The beast stumbled, bleeding, and staggered toward the barn. The men closed in. They had trapped it, and they were ready to finish it. But what they saw stopped them cold. Before their eyes, the beast began to change. Its body shrank, the fur faded, the snout shortened, and lying on the ground, gasping for breath, pale and covered in blood, was Mateos. The silence that followed was heavier than the shot itself. Zepequeño lowered his gun. Mrs. Amelia came forward, her eyes shining in the moonlight, and knelt by her son. She gathered him in her arms as though he were still a child. He was alive, pale, but alive, and her voice cut through the night when she told the men to leave. They obeyed. They had no choice. From that night on, the secret of Santa Helena became something all of them carried, but none of them spoke aloud. Mateos survived the wound, but the curse did not leave him. The howls continued, echoing through the valley with each full moon. The farm learned to live in silence and fear. New workers came, old ones left, and those who stayed whispered to each other when the dogs barked at shadows. Sometimes there was just the loss of an animal. Sometimes only deep tracks in the mud that vanished into the trees. But always the presence of something watching, something restless, something bound to the land. Even after years passed, the farm never forgot. On certain nights, some swore they saw a figure at the edge of the trees, tall and dark, watching the house with eyes that glowed faintly under the moon. Time moved on, as it always does. Mateos grew older, his face worn by sun and sleepless nights. Mrs. Amelia grew weaker, but her eyes never lost their sharpness. And when she finally passed away quietly in the morning light, the farm seemed to sink into a silence so deep it almost felt like morning. That night, the moon was not full, and yet the dogs in the valley howled all the same. Even today, Santa Elena Farm still stands. The old house still groans when the wind blows from the south. The pasture still glimmers under the moonlight. And on nights when the moon is full, some say they see fresh tracks in the mud. Not quite human, not quite beast, something in between. I tell you this because I know the land, and I've learned that what we call monsters are sometimes only lives twisted into another shape. If you ever take that road, stop at the gate. If it is day, you will see the grass sway with the wind. If it is night, you will see the moon rising over the hills. And if the moon is full, you may hear it. Not quite a howl, not quite a cry, but something that carries both pain and warning. And when you hear it,